Hey everyone, John here. Today I'd like to talk to you about breeding cattle. Before we get started, I want to go over a few points on this bull. In terms of just identifying certain parts, this is considered the skull or face. This is the poll, the crest, the throat, dewlap or neck, the chest. This is the rib or the turn to the rib, heart, flank, sheath, knee, pastern, hock, quarter, and hip. Now, let's get started. First and foremost, whenever we think about bulls and heifers, we think about them being able to perform a job, and that's breeding and making more bulls and heifers. So, whenever we think about being able to do that, they need to have a couple of pieces. First and foremost, in order for a heifer to be profitable, she needs to have a calf every year for a minimum of 7 years in a production setting. Now, that being said, there's a couple of things that she needs to have. So let's look at a heifer real quick. And for me, I think this girl has a lot of great things. Now, I've freezed her in motion. She's taking a long, comfortable stride up front. She has her legs fully underneath her. And as you can see, this front foot and this rear foot are both meeting the exact same hole. Alright, now that's really important because that means that she's super flexible. Now, I want you to think of it like this. Whenever we think about humans, structure naturally degrades as we get older. A great example of this, and not to be too humorous, but how many grandmothers, and I mean 70-year-old women, are out running marathons? I can name absolutely zero off the top of my head. And the reason for that is because our bones and joints deteriorate as we get older. So whenever a cow, reaches 8 years of age, she's starting to get pretty old. So if she doesn't have this extra flexibility that we see here, there's going to be some problems in the future for her. And ultimately, we're probably going to have to cull her, that's C-U-L-L, or we're going to have to sell her and ship her out of our facility because she can't make us any more money. Now, at the same time, this heifer has a lot of great things. First and foremost, she's very refined and attractive about her head and neck. She has a lot of turn to her rib and body. And then, I think that overall, she just has that distinct look of quality from the side. So let's recap. Now, I've put it in a formatted list here of things that are very important whenever we talk about breeding cattle. The first two things are absolutely the most important. That's structural correctness and rib or body, shape, and depth. So structural correctness means how the bones and the joints are aligned together to allow for more longevity, or potentially ones that are not structurally correct have joints that are coarse and angles that are straight and ultimately restricting in how they move. That's not good because they're not going to last long in production and they're not going to make us money. Now, since structure is so important because it's related to how long they can last in a facility, what about rib and body shape? Well, this is really important for heifers. The reason why is, whenever they are getting ready to take care of a calf, that calf is going to be in the center of their body. They're going to be right here, okay? And if there's that extra depth, that extra turn to the rib, that calf's going to have a lot more room versus one that's maybe a little bit shallower body. There's not going to be as much room. And ultimately, that's going to put more stress on the cow, and it's not going to make her perform, and she's going to make you lose money. Now, there's a couple of other things, and I like to call these bonus objectives. The reason I like to call them that is because these two are essential to be profitable in production. These have to do with quality. Balance is ultimately how their top line and their body line relate. This heifer right here is very level in her top, and she also has a natural gliding swoop to her body line. Okay, that's great because they're parallel, and ultimately what that means is that they're symmetrical. Okay, top line body line, overall symmetry. Okay? A great example was this bull that we looked at earlier. Whenever we take a step back from our computer screens, our monitors, or our projectors, and we just look at this bull as a whole, ultimately, we kind of see a box. That's what I like to call symmetry, and it's a great way to just view balance. Another thing that's very important, but a lot of people don't understand, is femininity and masculinity. Heifers that are feminine and bulls that are masculine are going to be more sexually enabled to have more reproductive success. And I know it sounds weird, but honestly, feminine heifers make more masculine bulls. Masculine bulls are more attractive. They bring you more money whenever it comes to semen sales. They snap a better picture. Like this guy right here, he's very masculine in terms of his head, and his front 1/3 has that look of power throughout. And then feminine heifers are also more attractive and take a really awesome picture. Okay? They look great out in your pasture, and ones that look great, people are going to be more inclined to buy. Power is a very important thing because people often forget the whole purpose of breeding cattle is that we're going to make market-bound steers and heifers, and ultimately those market-bound progeny need to have that extra muscle. And you know what? Muscle and carcass traits, they're hereditary. So breeding cattle have to have them too. They need to be really stout and powerful. Both in the front 1/3 of their skeleton need to have some extra muscle up here. And look at this guy's turn to his quarter. Okay? That's real muscle. Then we can even tell that he has a little bit of bulge up here to his top line. And he just hits you with that extra look of just sheer masculinity and power. And you know what? He's going to carry that on to his steers that are ultimately going to go to a plant or some sort of harvesting facility. And that extra muscle just means more dollars for you in a production setting. So let's recap. Structure and body. Together they're called functionality, the ability to get out there and just have the basic tools needed to survive in a production setting. Then balance, femininity or masculinity, and power are those bonus objectives, the things that add the extra oomph whenever we talk about quality cattle. Now always remember that udders, vulvas, sheaths, and testicles should always be considered sound. Remember that udders should have teats that are refined and adequate in terms of their size and shape, and testicles should be no less than 32 centimeters. Larger testicles means more reproductive success whenever they go out and cover cows. Now let's look at these guys in motion. Alright, now just a few steps in, I can go ahead and tell that this guy's really flexible and structurally correct. The reason being, he gets his hock really far out behind him on the go, and he gets that hock really far underneath him too. Ultimately, his hip is still level, and you can tell that he looks just like a runner in terms of that hind leg set. He has that ultra athletic stride that's essential to be long lasting in production. Let's look at him just a little bit longer and see what else we can find. Alright, here's what I love. Check out this guy's front leg. See how far forward it is? He's got some extra reach and flexibility up front, which is definitely great. Not going to complain about that one bit. And then you see this leg right here. It's also far behind him and underneath him. And, you know, having that extra reach and flexibility, a lot of people don't understand that this front 1/3 of their skeleton is actually the hardest portion. And remember, it's a lot easier to pull items than it is to push them. And him having that extra reach and flexibility up front definitely gives him a little bit more pep in his step, just a little bit more, just that extra go whenever he gets out and maybe has a halter on him, just that ability to lead more comfortably. Now, here's another thing I want to identify. Notice how as soon as he picks up his front foot, his back foot is there to meet that hole. That's what we like to call filling their track. And we can see that in this heifer right here. Okay? See how that front foot is matching that hole to that rear foot. And cattle that can do that are definitely considered sound. Now let's take a look at a bull and see if there's any differences between the one we previously watched. Okay, now I'm not calling this bull bad by any means. He still has some interesting pieces. He's really pronounced in terms of his crest. He's very extended and long about his neck. But there's also some things I like to change about this bull. In relation to the one that we previously saw, he needs to be quite a bit deeper in terms of his rib. He needs to be more powerful right here in terms of his quarter. He doesn't have that natural turn and depth to his muscle shape like the other bull had. And even though I'm not calling him bad built, his structure could be fixed in some areas. I think that he could get that hock further out behind him as he gets out and goes, and he could be laid in neater in the angle to his shoulder. Remember that we want a 45-degree angle to that shoulder. And remember that 45-degree angle to that shoulder allows him to get out with more reach and flexibility up front. It allows them to get that foot farther behind him whenever they get out and go. Now let's look at another heifer I think has that 45-degree angle to their shoulder and that extra reach up front. It just really has some really great pieces overall. Immediately we can see that she's balanced. She's great in terms of her top line. She's uniform in terms of her body line. And even though maybe I like to see her just a little bit deeper in terms of her flank and heart, that's being very critical of a rock star one. She's great in terms of how she extends out of her neck with her shoulder. She's 45-degree angle, top of her shoulder to the point of her shoulder. And she has that 45-degree angle coming out of her neck too. You want those two 45-degree angles to meet. That's a great way to remember it. You want a 45-degree angle from her head down to where she connects on her neck to her shoulder. Top of her shoulder to the point of her shoulder, we want a 45-degree angle as well. She's very attractive and extended and clean through her neck and has that feminine kind of appearance. Then she's still attractive and functional in the set to her hock. Ultimately, let's watch her one more time on motion and just see how sound she is. She matches and fills her track. She's very flexible in her knee and hock. And this one, I believe, can last a very long time and be very profitable in production because she has those practical pieces necessary to be high performing and have that extra wow factor if you ever wanted to sell her. Now, let's recap. Remember that our key priorities are structural correctness and body, and they make up functionality, the ability to get out there and be profitable in production. Just those basic tools needed to cover the bare essentials of having that extra body and soundness to carry a calf and not be stressful in a large pasture setting. And then our bonus objectives: balance, femininity, masculinity, power. We want our heifers very feminine and attractive. Our bulls very masculine, rugged, and stout. We want them both to have balance. And we especially want our bulls to have some extra power and real scale to width. That way they can inject some terminal value into their market-bound progeny. Once again, thank you very much.